Hi everybody, this is Brody from Brody's Garage. Today is August 9th. This is episode 44, and I have a lot of things to share with you. Let's go. Okay, so picking up where we left off in the last episode, we sprayed the car with gray epoxy primer, which gave the car a even coat for the first time in its life, and significantly improved the appearance, I think. Since then, my goals have been to try to get the car street legal, and by street legal, I mean take it down to the DMV. I have to apply for a brand new VIN because the car did not come with a vehicle identification number. It's an aftermarket body. To get the VIN, I need to pass a certain level of safety equipment, and it has to be inspected by a certified repair shop here in town. That's a list of things, about 20 things that are everything from basic stuff to, window glass, seatbelts, headlights, parking lights, brake lights, turn signals, wipers, emergency brake. I forget all of the items, but I'm about 75% done with that list. I've been making progress over the past week or so. I also had some family in town. I've taken the car on a couple of little quick spins around the block just to kind of show my family members what the car looks like and feels like. So it's been a fun week. I've made some progress, and let's dive in and I'll show you what I got done. Okay, so here's what I have got going on today. I received this coolant overflow tank from Summit Racing. It's I guess it's a billet aluminum with a black powder coat finish, and it comes with a mounting bracket. And of course, because I wanted nice little button head Allen bolts like that, it was a bit of a challenge to get that in there. I ended up having to weld the nuts onto the back side on both the ones that face in and the ones that face that direction, so that I didn't have to get behind there with a wrench and a nut to try to get this thing mounted. It was impossible. So I welded the nuts on there, I got it in there. What I've done is I'm using it as a recovery tank. So the coolant overflow will go through this little push connect tube into the bottom side of the tank. That way when it fills up from the bottom, and then it retracts as it cools down and returns to the cooling system. However, this will probably have to go into its own little catch can or something, because I think if I ever take it out to a racetrack, in the event that this were to fully expand and overflow, it's just going to dump out on my front tire, and that would not be good. So I'm going to figure out maybe a secondary little bottle of some kind just to give it a place to go. What else have I done? I mounted my crankcase breather. I was trying to do two of these. I was going to put one underneath the fender well there and one over there, and I originally had them mounted there, but there's just not going to be any room, because on this side I'm going to have my AC and heater lines coming out from behind there, and that's going to tie up a lot of that space, and we've already taken up a lot of space with the down tube. So ultimately I just decided to use one canister with two ports on it, and one hose is going to this valve cover and the other one's going over to this side here. And I think I'm gonna find a better angle, like a 135, to get this hose to tuck down a little bit tighter and hide it behind the intake. I don't really want to see the hose that much, but it worked out pretty well. I had to pull out my vintage air unit from underside of the dash to get these bolts into their nuts, and of course at some point maybe I'll do the same. I'll weld nuts onto the back side of the firewall. That way I can take this thing in and out without having to do that. But that was kind of a bear. That's what's going on with that. I installed my rear view mirror. However, I got the wrong size screws. I got some number 6 screws and I need number 8, so those are ordered. But the mirror is in place, and yeah, there you go, a very vintage, original style OEM mirror. I did opt for the rectangular side mirrors, which I think, to me, they just work with the lines of the car better than the round ones. I never really quite understood the round mirror on a car that's got so many square lines to it. So I went with the Chevelle style side mirrors. I may be off a little bit on my mounting. I did ask the question on a couple forums, and I got a little bit of a varied response as to where the mounting holes are supposed to be from the factory. I may be in the way of my vent window. I don't know until I get it installed if that thing is going to clear when I open it. I guess if it doesn't, I'll have to relocate this and weld up the holes, but I chose that spot for now. It looks good, and yeah, there you go. Currently, I'm working on installing some seat belts that I just received today from RESTO-Mod. And there's one of the lap belts right there for the rear seats. There's the other one, and there's one of the seat retractors. And what I decided to do was not do a roll cage at this particular juncture. We've got 2 kids, well, 3 kids, but 2 little ones, and getting them into the back seat with a roll bar over here, I just didn't want to deal with that. And you know, screw safety. Now, we're gonna keep the car safe. I did opt to go for the shoulder harness 3-point belt, so we've got a little bit of extra protection here on the front seats. However, the instructions that come with RESTO-Mod, and I even called them, which by the way, they're in Henderson, Nevada, not too far from me. They send you this sort of little installation guide. It's a universal kit. It's not specific to any application, but leaves a lot to be figured out, because this thing came with a ton of hardware and brackets, none of which are even mentioned in this instruction diagram at all. Secondly, I had to go online on YouTube and I finally saw a guy installing one of these, and I would have had no idea that this bracket was intended for the 2 factory holes that were here in the, what do you call this? Well, this piece, the roof. So this required a couple of 3/8 16 bolts. Unfortunately for my car, the spacing was off by about 1/8 of an inch. So I had to get the die grinder out and slot the holes so that this thing would go in there. The guy that I saw online in his Camaro, they just went right in. So I don't know why mine is 1/8 of an inch off, but it is. Anyway, I've got an anchor point here for my shoulder harness mounting point, and I'm gonna put the retractor down there. Now, in installing this, I was going to use these plastic bushings so that the metal bracket isn't just banging around on there. And I thought that this would pop right into the bracket, but it didn't. It was off by, I don't know, more than 1/16 of an inch. So once again, Mr. Die Grinder has come in handy, and now I can pop this little plastic bushing inside that hole. All right? So let's see how it looks. And by the way, I've said it a number of times before, but throughout my entire build process, nothing fits. Nothing fits. Even the bushings that come with their own components. Now, I can't say for sure if that's where the bushing even goes, because the instructions don't even mention a bushing, but there are several included in this kit. And I just figured out, well, that's got to go there, because I don't want the bolt, which is much smaller than this, to be flopping around. So the bushing's going in there. I had to take it upon myself to figure out how to get it to fit. And that's just been par for the course every single step of the way. Let's get back to fighting this car. All right, well, there is the first seatbelt mocked up. I'm, of course, not super crazy about having to see that unsightly belt just hanging down in the middle of there. But, you know, it's a trade-off for safety, I guess. And I just recently watched a video where this Mercury Comet got into a head-on collision, basically, and everybody in the car went slamming into the dash. So I guess I'm gonna have to live with this, and I'll choose safety over vision. But anyway, this is how the retro belts are fitting, and I have a few complaints, so bear with me. On this side, we have just a lap belt, which is anchored down there to the factory floor position with a 1/2-inch thread bolt. By the way, my kit, which was ordered for a 67 Nova, contains no 1/2-inch bolts. Every bolt here included was a 7/16 thread, so they're mostly useless. But luckily I had a couple of 1/2-inch bolts laying around. So this is the lap belt on this side. And then up here we have the other half of this, which I chose the aircraft style belt, which will come over. So that clips into there. So we have our lap belt, our shoulder belt going up. So the kit did include this bracket, which, as I mentioned, I had to slot the holes wider to get these 2 bolts in. And then I used a couple of their spacers. There are a couple of different types of nylon spacers. One is just a straight up spacer, and one is like a bushing. I made the bushing go inside the metal bracket there, so that the bolt wasn't just rubbing on the metal and flopping around. I will have to get a nylon locking nut to hold this in place so that this can still move freely, but yet the nut won't come loose. I did use a couple spacers behind the bracket to get this away from here and away from the roof line here. Otherwise, this would have been just right up against the metal and it wouldn't be able to swivel like this. So that's where I'm at with this. So let's talk about door handles. These are the lovely Eddie Motorsports polished billet aluminum handles. They're kind of styled after the original ones with a little bit of flair to them. And of course, they're polished aluminum, which looks great when it's all shined up. It matches my wheels, but the downside is they scratch really easy. So I'll probably be polishing these things constantly. Now then, for the fitment, here we go again with the latest in Nothing Fits. I had to slot these holes downward, and I had to also open up this opening here to get this handle to drop down to where it sits within this little recessed area of the door panel. You can see these lines right here. This was sitting like way up here originally. This just doesn't look good at all. So I had to move it downward to fit in there. Actually, this forward side still has a little bit more to go, maybe 1/8 of an inch or almost. Problem is now we're exposing the upper side of the original hole. So, you know, isn't that just lovely? So I'm probably gonna have to weld that up and fill it in a little bit to make this really right. The other thing I had to do was grind off and shorten this little push rod here, which actuates the door latch. That little rod there comes in contact with that lever right in there and pushes it to open it. And it was already hitting with the door handle like way out here. So I had to grind off that rod to get this to sit flush and still just barely make contact with the latch inside. So now that I've done that, I'll probably fine tune this and then bolt it on, but man, oh man, I could sure use a break. All right, I'm about to try to get my LED headlights mounted. I completely forgot, because it's been so long since I've messed with one of these cars, that this is the actual mounting bucket that the headlight goes into, and then this entire assembly sits on this bucket here. It rides on these screws here, which allow it to adjust out and in, and there's a spring that goes on here too. I mistakenly had one of these and I started cutting this part off, and so I've already ruined one of these in doing so. What I need to do is trim this portion out, which I think I measured about 3.6 inches to kind of get this whole assembly to fit down inside there. It just needs to go down about 1/4 of an inch, and that's what's holding it up. So I'm gonna now try to cut the back of this thing out, and we'll see if we can get this mounted. Okay, so moving on to the main headlight bucket, I also had to open up the center to clear the other mounting bucket. So I used the old trusty jigsaw with a metal blade on there and drilled a hole, a pilot hole, cut all the way around it, and that's what's left. Let's go see what's cooking. Whew. Ah, man. Fighting me every single step of the way. Wouldn't expect anything different. There's my first headlight bucket assembly kind of installed. Looks like it's maybe just a teeny bit crooked. I'm sure I can fix that later. But I got the bracket in there. Just need to actually pick this side up a little bit and rotate it, and then maybe it'll all straighten out. I'm gonna see if I can get the bezel on now. All right, passenger side is kind of done. I know the headlight bezel doesn't fit perfectly against the fender there. I don't know if that's a fender issue or a bezel issue. I was told these were NOS bezels, but who knows at this point? And even if they are, does it really matter? I do have the gaskets that go behind these, so maybe that'll compensate just enough to make that not noticeable. Now I just need to finish wiring these things up. I gotta do the other side. By the way, while I'm here, I will point out that I did notch out my grill. Kind of sacrilegious, I know, but you know, there's nothing stock about this car. And I had to make some clearance for my air filters there, so there you go. Okay, continuing with the lights. I have just located the wires that go to my headlight switch, which is right there in the dash, and cut and crimped my terminals. Found a couple of wiring diagrams, sort of correlated between the painless wiring harness and one that I found online for the switch itself, and everything seems to line up. So let's get this plugged in and see if these lights work. Hey, check it out. We have working tail lights. We also have a working license plate frame light. It's a billet specialties as well. If we go down to the front, we have parking lights are on with matching, or I should say coordinated LED halo rings. The halo rings are wired to the parking lights so that they're on at the same time together. And then if we go flip on our turn signal switch, we should have flashing left turn signal, front and rear. Let's check the right while we're at it. There's the right. And there's the flashing right. I was going to wire the halo to the turn signal so that they both alternated while blinking, but I decided against that. I think it's cooler to have those come on with the parking lights and let the turn signals do their own thing. So what do I have left now? I have to wire up the indicator lights in the dash so that they coordinate with the flashing turn signals. And I have to wire up my brake light switch so I get brake lights only when applied. And other than that, that takes care of most of the lighting issues. I still have to do courtesy lights and a dome light, but not a big deal. All right, let's move on. Good morning, it's a new day, and today I decided to hook up my turn signal and high beam indicators in the Dakota Digital Dash. Now, a stroke of luck in my favor, the painless wiring harness already had those wires built in to run to an old school factory style cluster here, which would have had like the bulbs in the back. So it had the wires, only difference is I had to run them over here to connect to the Dakota Digital control module, because this is what handles all of the inputs to send to the digital gauges. This really has no wiring, no bulbs, anything. It's all digital with one single cable connecting to the control module, so all the in and out happens over there. Most of the sensors are coming directly from the Holley ECU, which has, you know, its own wiring harness going to the engine, so that information is fed in there digitally. But there are certain analog inputs that I had to connect, like the fuel level gauge in the back to the sending unit. And right now, these three wires that are going here to the left, right, and high beam indicators, those are analog circuits, so they're coming from the harness. And let's check it out. With the key turned on, I have my left signal, right signal, and let's see, my headlights are on. So if I click the dimmer switch, which is down there, sorry about all the wiring in the way, but there's my old school style dimmer switch, and if I kick that thing on, boom, I get my high beam indicator. So I'm happy with that. I have headlights, tail lights, turn signals and hazards, brake lights. The only thing I need to do is I still need to hook up a neutral safety switch, which I think that I can tap into the Holley ECU for that as well, because it has a transmission indicator in there. So as long as I can find the wire coming out of the harness that is for the neutral safety switch, I think I can wire that in as well. Okay, so I had some family visiting this past week. My dad came down from North Dakota. He's 84 years old. My Aunt Phyllis, his sister, came up from Southern California. My daughter came over, and I took my fiance for a ride. So I took a few people, including my neighbor, for a little joyride to see what they thought about the car, and here's what they had to say. I got my dad here with me. He's visiting from North Dakota. Hi, Dad.
Hello, son.
Hello. What do you think of the car so far?
I think it's going to be one badass machine.
Oh, yeah? What did you think of the test drive the other day?
Well, it didn't scare me because I'm a speed freak anyway.
Yeah.
But this son bitch is going to move.
Yeah, that's for sure, huh?
Yep.
And I didn't tell you, but I think I'm going to go with the Tangelo orange paint on it. What do you think about the orange paint?
Well, I think it'll be all right. It's probably not the color I would paint it, but it ought to look good.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dad.
You're welcome.
This is my Aunt Phyllis. She just came up from San Diego area, and I just took her for a little spin. Phyllis, any comments?
What an exhilarating ride I have just had.
Aha.
What a marvelous, marvelous, marvelous fun experience. I love this car, and I'm trying to talk him into the Tangelo.
The Tangelo. You think I should go with the pearl orange, huh?
I'm convinced you should.
I think we may be in agreement there.
I think so.
All right.
Well, thank you, Brody. This
Thank
was
you.
quite an experience.
Love
it. Love it. Love it.
All right, so we're going to take a little test pass here on a little side street. I have my daughter, Brina, with me today. Hi, Brina.
Hello.
She's wearing the goggles because there's no windshield in the car. I'm going to turn the camera around, and then you want to film for me? So I got my buddy Garrett here in the car. This is his first ride in the car since October. He helped me unload the empty shell out of the trailer, and this will be his first ride. How you feeling? Are you nervous? Are you nervous? All right. Okay, so the main things that I have to do before I can pass the inspection are I got to get the glass installed. Now, the sheet specifically states that it is not required to have the glass installed, but any glass that is installed has to be DOT approved or meet the proper safety requirements. I'm going to put in the front and rear windshields. I'm not going to bother with the side glass at this time because it's all going to come back apart to be painted. So I'll get the front and rear glass installed. I'm waiting on a guy who's an experienced windshield guy to come and help me with the front. If that doesn't pan out soon, I may just give it a whirl myself. But I know that the glass has to go inside the rubber weather strip channel, and it's got to be pressed in, and then you got to use a rope to kind of pull the lip of the seal around. So it's a bit tricky. I would like to have the help from an experienced person. I've got to get the glass done. I've got to get my windshield wipers installed and working. I was kind of surprised at that one, especially here in Vegas, but it does rain from time to time. So they've got to be working and functional. I have everything to do that. I just got to do it. I did seat belts. I got all my lights working. What else? The emergency brake. And now that I know that that's a requirement, I haven't decided if I'm going to go with a foot pedal or a hand brake or an emergency brake controlled by an electronic solenoid. They have electronic e-brakes now. So I'm going to look at my options and decide what I want to do with that. But I think just a few more things and I'm ready to take this thing down and get it legalized. And when it's legal, I can drive it. I can enjoy it for a little bit, work out the bugs and fine tune it. And I think probably within a month or so, I'm going to be ready to take it back apart. The weather will be cooling down by then in September, and we're going to get the thing fully stripped back apart. I'll be able to fix whatever's wrong with the car at that point, and we're going to get the thing rotisserie-ized and painted top to bottom, and it's going to be super sharp. At that point, when it comes back from paint, we'll have the final details, sound deadener, carpet and upholstery, finish the wiring, install the side windows and power regulators and all that stuff. I'm going to make a center console for it. The list goes on and on and on. I'm forgetting some things, I'm sure, but at any rate, just wanted to give you an update. I'm pretty happy with the way things have been going lately, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. Take care.